I was really conscious of scale in this movie. We were on that firing room where they launched the rocket. So often in Apollo movies or docs, they're really chronicling what's happening out of Houston once the rocket gets launched. So we reconstructed this whole actually firing room to scale. And we put the set on rockers, and we had all the video screens showing what was being dramatized, what was being shown that day. So we brought all the background in, and we launched the rocket, and they all got to feel what it felt like to launch that rocket.
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. In this episode, a 1960s marketing maven is tasked with staging a fake moon landing in director Greg Berlanti's romantic comedy, Fly Me to the Moon. The film tells the story of Kelly, a marketing director tasked with fixing NASA's waning public image against the wishes of their launch director, Cole. But when the White House deems the mission too important to fail, Kelly and Cole must work together and stage a fake moon landing as the launch grows nearer. In addition to Fly Me to the Moon, Berlanti's other directorial credits include the feature films Love, Simon, Life as We Know It, and The Broken Hearts Club, a romantic comedy. He was nominated for the DGA Award for Outstanding Directorial Achievement in Movies for Television Limited Series for his 2012 episode of the miniseries Political Animals. Following a screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Berlanti spoke with director Dan Gilroy about filming Fly Me to the Moon. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
Hello, thanks for coming out tonight. What a hell of a movie. In today's age, what a great way to see a well-produced, big-scale movie on a big screen in a beautiful theater. I think, unfortunately, in 10 years, we might look back fondly and say, oh, that was an amazing experience. We used to see things in big screens. But great movie. I really loved it. I should say up front, I'm not completely objective because my daughter was the screenwriter. So that should probably disqualify me up front. But I insisted I wanted to be a part of this because I actually do love the film so much. I really do. I'm going to be working off some notes here. For those who may or may not know about Greg, you have an astonishing body of work. I mean, I've done a deep dive on you the last couple of days.
Okay.
I can only really scratch the surface. Among the many things, you had a record 15 shows on the air simultaneously. And that's serving as creator, showrunner, and writer. Greg's a WGA, DGA, Golden Globe, and Emmy-nominated writer-director and producer. You won the Norman Lear Achievement Award for accomplishment in TV. You won a Humanitas Award. You have awards from the PGA, SAG-AFTRA, GLAAD. And honestly, there's so many honors, I couldn't even really list them all. And he's an incredible philanthropist, which I just read about. And the causes you support, I support as well. Your TV and streaming career could take a week for me to detail. So we're going to cover your directing career. And there's something that strikes me. I've done 3 films. This is your fourth film. Fourth film. So I think people would look at it and go, oh, it's like, that's not a lot of films you've done to do a film of this size. But I think what people don't understand, some people, is that when you're a showrunner in a show, in every form and fashion, you are directing. You are doing pre-production, you're doing script work, you're doing casting. I mean, there's nothing your hands don't touch. So you bring this enormous body of knowledge about directing through all of your other work. And I'm curious, as you directed this film, did you feel like, yes, I'm sort of like just drifting into this, what I've been doing for the last 20 years as well? It probably didn't feel as different as maybe for some people it would.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say thank you for this. And when people ask me the origin story of this movie and how it came together, I can actually safely say tonight it came together because you had a child who wrote a great script.
So I'm responsible. This is great. I love it.
So, but I was as such a fan of yours, I was really intimidated by what you were going to say when you first watched the movie. And I still have the email that you wrote when you were with Rose and you first watched the movie, and we both felt the same way. And so thank you for your tremendous support of filmmaking and of us and of her and everything. So I think show running and directing are very similar. I guess probably because I feel like the thing I have most to offer that I enjoy the most about the business is sort of being the arbiter of the emotional experience. And whether that's from a writer's room all the way to an episode being finished, or whether that's directing and you are facilitating all the departments and everybody to sort of feel and see the same thing so that the audience, for me, so that the audience has the same experience that I had when I read Rose's script for the first time. And I got to the end of it and I thought, wow, okay, I want to make people feel what this made me feel. And so everything sort of becomes the burden from that moment until then. I think that the thing that having the opportunity that I've had to showrun, the old Mike Nichols line about directing being like sex because nobody ever gets to see how the other guy does it. Right. When you showrun, you get to see how the other people do it, right, because you get to work with all these great directors who come through, and you're very often in an edit bay with them, right, and you're living with their results, which is where I think every director is sort of pulling their hair out, is sitting there saying, why didn't I get this? Or I should have done that. And when you're spending that's probably where the most experience I've had in television and in show running has helped me the most as a director, in that it's very hard to be on a set and not think about, I'm going to be in that edit bay and I'm going to need this or I'm going to need that. And so prep and production all become about making sure I have all the tools or everything I need to make the movie that I want to make then, and you kind of remake it, I think, over and over again.
I mean, it's really the best possible education, because I didn't think about it. You're working with, in your life, you probably worked with dozens of directors.
And other directors don't get that
opportunity. They're all different, as you know. We're seeing the DGA. Everybody's style is different, from their workflow to how they shoot, to what's important to them, discussions. And you got to not just watch them, but you're sort of overseeing them as they're working.
Correct. Yeah, I've learned. And
was there one director or a couple directors who maybe stood out? I mean,
gosh, I've done a tremendous amount of television with someone like David Nutter.
Right. Sure.
And so I learned a tremendous amount from him. And I think, I don't know if Gregory Smith said he was going to maybe be here. Is Gregory Smith?
Greg, you're out there? No.
There he is.
Oh, there he is.
So Gregory started for me as an actor on Everwood, one of my first shows, and he was our resident director this year on our show, Superman and Lois. He's one of the best directors I've ever worked with, and so I'm still learning from him.
Fantastic. Yeah. So let's cover your prior films just a little bit. 1999, so listed as the year 2000, The Broken Hearts Club. $1 million you had as a budget, staggering $1 million over 13 days.
We shot it.
So they had all the time and the money in the world. You wrote and directed it.
We were doing 9 pages a day, 10 pages a day. So that helps coming from TV, because you don't think that that's not possible.
So you wrote and directed it, and the film stars, among others, the great John Mahoney. Yeah, what a joy he must have been to work with. What stands out now, looking back at your first film? The memories of what you learned, or what maybe stood out of doing it. What stayed with you?
I think the fact that I remember those 13 days each so vividly. I mean, you think back on periods of time in your life and they're not as concentrated. And so I think there was that. I think I think that there's some stuff that, as an artist of any kind, whether it's writing, directing, as you get older, you can kind of get away from instincts you had when you were younger that weren't as clouded by everything else. And sometimes I'm trying to get back to the person I was then, in terms of I didn't know what the rules were, and so I did some things that I maybe were risky in a way that I wish I didn't know what the rules totally were right now. Right. And so there was a vitality, I think, to it in that regard. And just the cast, I love probably working with actors is my favorite part, because I like stuff that's dramatic and comedic. And everybody's always asking me about tone. What's a tone going to be? What's a tone? And I feel like it's so decided by, yes, you can write a certain amount of it, but it really is decided by what their capacities are. And if you believe them, you're going to believe anything that's sort of happening. And so that's my favorite part, is sort of creating with them on the set, or at least that's the part that's maybe the most different for me from my work in TV.
I would want to back up just a little bit. I forgot to mention that Greg worked, like another great director in this town, in a video store.
I did.
So Quentin Tarantino, another filmmaker.
Very different, but yeah.
So were you a film buff, and that's why you worked in the video store? Or was it just a summer job that popped up?
I needed work. I had to pay for, I had to pay for my car that I wanted. So
Was it a Blockbuster?
It was not. It was pre-Blockbuster. That's how old I am.
Wow.
In fact, I remember the first time someone came in and they're like, you should check out this place, Blockbuster. They're going to put you guys out of business. I was like, I drove over to Blockbuster and I was like, we were doing things like, recording tapes in the back room so that when people would get the line through their movie and come in and complain about it, I was
Didn't
17
Michelle
years
Gondry
old.
make a movie like that? Be Kind, Rewind?
Yes.
So they had that thing going.
Anyway, but it was wild. And you could, I did get to sort of plan how the way I always think about that is by what sections of the movie theater or by the store that what movies were in what sections, and there were always, I always liked the movies that you couldn't really put in one section or another section. They were the ones that sort of like felt like they were the totality of the human experience.
And just dwelling there for a second, while you're working there, are you starting to realize it's a summer job, but wow, I'm really have access to all these great films. Are you taking them home? Are you starting to, did your interest in film and TV predate? I know the name of your production company is there's that little logo, Move Your Head, Greg.
Yeah.
So obviously in your home, that was because his father would be watching TV and Greg's head would be in the way. So it was like, move your head. So obviously entertainment was important in your home.
Yeah. I mean, it was that era still of like TV was everything.
Right.
It was the other parent, and Generation X and Latchkey Kid. And I was sort of watching everything. And then the first VHS, the first Betamax, and it was the first of all those things.
Right.
I was really into theater, and I thought I was going to be a playwright. I mean, I really, that was probably what I wanted to do when I was younger. And then I went to Northwestern in Chicago and I took my first TV writing class, and that wasn't even as popularized as it became. And my first film writing class. And I realized, that I enjoyed this medium as well.
Let's go to the next two films you do. So you then do in 2010, you do Life as We Know It, romantic comedy with Katherine Heigl and Josh Duhamel. Then in 2018, you directed Love, Simon, which many compare to the films of John Hughes for its heart and its humor. So John Hughes influence, because I see that in your work. John Hughes was a humanist like you, and characters were front and center always in his films. And it was not sentimentality, but there was always an empathy for the characters. He cared about people. Was Hughes an influence for you at all?
Definitely. I mean, you couldn't grow up in the 80s and not have that seep in. I think, again, it was sort of, and even in the filmmaking of it, we were trying to sort of nail a bit more of a nostalgic kind of tone. It wasn't as popular to bring back the synth as a soundtrack then at the time for a teen YA kind of movie. And we did that in homage to that time and other elements too. I mean, I think for me, when I'm drawn to do something, it's usually there's a character in it. And I think we were talking about this a little bit backstage, but you think sometimes the reasons you do a movie aren't by the time you have to make the movie or make the show and realize, oh, that's why I was doing that,
Right.
And it's not always what you think, obviously if you're conceiving the story, it's one thing, but if you're coming on board as I did on this and Love, Simon, I just thought there should be a film like this and I can't believe we're in 2017 or 18 and it didn't exist. And so I thought, okay, I can really contribute to this. And I feel like I know the tone and what the story should be and how it, or how it should be executed. And so that was sort of why I did it. And it touched a nerve and everybody was so great to work with on it. So
I'm going to leave your past here in a second. The last question. So you go to Northwestern, you're thinking about playwriting, you do your first film in 1999, but you had done some TV work before 1999, probably quite a bit actually. So you're sort of at that point, you're deciding TV, film. Was it just sort of, I'm just going to go back and forth, which is fine? Were you ever thinking like, I'm going to stay in TV probably, or I'm going to stay in film? Or was it just like, I'm going to go idea by idea with no...
When I first walked in a TV writing room, I thought that was the closest to theater because you were throwing up a play every week.
Right.
And I felt like, I can learn the most here because writers are involved in every step of the process. Right. And so that was, I got a lot out of it. I would say I had written that movie got me that job. So writing Broken Hearts Club got me the job on my first TV show.
Okay.
And so, and the producer of it kept saying to me at the time, every time we go to dinner to talk about who should direct it, he would say, I think you should do it. And he kept saying it to me until finally he said, I'm not going to raise the money for this unless you direct this film. Wow. And he ended up becoming my producing partner for a while. His name was Mickey Liddell. He's a big producer in this town. Sure. And he really pushed me to do it. And I was in the doing of it that I realized like, oh, wow, okay, I like this. This is fun.
So this film, as we now know, because you've all watched it, it's a very sophisticated, and if we were going to put it into a niche, it's a workplace romantic comedy, something that used to be made quite often. So you had James Brooks doing broadcast news. Nichols is doing Working Girl. I would imagine before I do a film, if I'm doing a certain genre, I will go back and watch those films. Did you go back and watch the workplace sophisticated rom-coms?
They're always that and Tootsie and things like that. Yeah, I watch them. Those I watch anyway all the time. I would say they're probably in my top 10 of most watched movies in my lifetime. And yes, I always admired those. Those were also coming of age right in the 80s when I was right when I was opening that store, and I would keep them on repeat all the time. So it wasn't. I felt like there was a real vacancy. Yeah. And so when I read Rose's script, it did touch that same nerve. And I thought, oh, wow, if Love, Simon was helping put a movie there that hadn't been there, these are the kind of movies with big stars that were big, fun, entertaining stories that were still about something. Right. And why aren't there movies like this? And the fact that Scarlett's getting behind something like this and that this script is in the kind of shape that it is and it's a go movie, it just was a really exciting prospect to be a part of.
Greg and I were talking backstage, and I was telling that when I actually started at Variety newspaper as a reporter, reviewer. So I've been tracking the business for a million years. And I firmly believe they talk about, oh, well, this kind of film isn't in right now, or people don't. It's such a self-fulfilling prophecy. If people don't go to see a certain kind of movie if it's not out there, and they'll certainly go and see the kind of movie if it is out there, and they'll enjoy it. So what's in yesterday suddenly is out tomorrow, and it goes back and forth. So I don't buy it. Not that I know you've heard it too. Any talk about rom-coms, sophisticated rom-coms, what audiences aren't smart enough to appreciate multiple plot lines and ideas while they're watching people fall in love? It's crazy. I mean, so I'm really happy that you made this film. So we're going to switch gears here. We're at the DGA. I'm going to start talking process, nuts and bolts. This movie to me was sort of like you built the Apollo rocket. It's so big and it's got so many pieces to it, and the scale of it is just amazing. And your cinematographer, obviously critical component, Dariusz Wolski,
plays the cinematographer in the movie as well.
Plays the cinematographer.
I made his job harder.
Yeah. And a lot of you probably know Dariusz's work, but just a list on, he did Napoleon, he did The Martian, he did Sicario, he did House of Gucci. This is a guy who's stepping into a lot of different realms and doing extremely well. Tell me, because I'm very curious. The films that I've done, I've worked with the same cinematographer, Robert Elswit. I have a very close, intimate relationship with my cinematographer. Tell me about your relationship with Dariusz, how it started, how it developed, and just what was the dance like, how you worked together?
It was one of my favorite parts of making this film because I really felt like, okay, there's so many elements to this. Obviously, we're appropriating 65 millimeter footage from that era. Right. We knew that we wanted to use as much of that as possible. So we wanted to shoot something that felt similar, but still modern. We knew that there was, you're segueing between the fake and the real. When I read Rose's third act, I did think to myself, how will I even do that? How could someone, and it was why it was so exciting. It was very rare that you read a third act that's like the theme of the movie writ large, which is the fake versus the real. And if you do your job right, everybody in the audience wants the true thing to be the real thing. Right. And you've made your point just by the exercise of that, but you have to execute it on that level. So I knew we were going to be segueing between all those things. Then we also needed to shoot the fake portion as though they would have done it in 69. So what would be the technical elements of that? So how big would the set have to be? How far would the black drop have to be back? How are you lighting it? You've got pretty much just one central light that they'd use at the time, one big vast Klieg light. The moon dust, so that, the moon dust settles or rises or falls in the same way. How many iterations of that are you going to have to look through? So there was a lot of complex conversations so that the audience wouldn't focus on any of that stuff. Right. Would just enjoy the ride. And so he was the person I had the most conversations with. Right. Then in the midst of all that, I'm auditioning DPs coming in to play the DP of the thing. And none of them sound as real as he sounds talking about it. So I was like, look, would you ever do this? You know, he's like, oh my God, I've never acted before since one Polish film in college. And so on the screen test day, I had him just do a line. I dressed him up and did a line, and I sent it into Apple, and I was like, this is our person. And everyone was like, great. Yeah. I was like, you know, he's also the DP in the movie.
Right.
But I think that's sort of, that's what I meant by earlier by like, okay, where can you take certain risks and do some fun things that like, you know, that just feel, and since so much of this movie was going to be about faking a real thing, and I wanted the real stuff to feel as real as possible, or I felt the stakes wouldn't really be there. And so he taught me the most, for sure. Maybe the most in decades. I mean, I also haven't done a period film ever. And so I was daunted by that. And we were with each other side by side every day from the first day he joined me on prep. You know, I would say even in color timing, which is interesting when you do a movie now.
Where did you do your timing? Where in town did you do
your Stefan,
Company 3.
Yeah.
They're the best.
I love Stefan. And him and Darius have like a terrific relationship.
The cinematographer is Stefan Sonnenberg, runs Company 3, who's the premier post house, and the cinematographer's all on Stefan. It's a love fest.
And Stefan Nakamura did our actual color timist in that company. But he was so the other interesting thing about that now is you're also color timing. We did two for this film. We did two mixes. One for theatrical, and one for the service. Right. And we did two color timing sessions.
Because the theater is different than how you're going to watch it on your screen.
And then we also did an extra Dolby mix as well. So I mean that was, and it's so, you know, I mean, when you get to your mix of the thing that's going to play in the service and they wheel in the iPad basically at the end, it's it's an interesting era we live in, but you want each of those things. That's how you realize, the majority of the audience is going to see it this way. I want it to look great and sound great.
So again, we're the DGA. I have to ask some more nuts and bolts questions. As you pointed out, every director works differently. There are directors, particularly writer-directors, who will walk onto a set and they'll tell the cinematographer, look, I respect you. I'm going to lean on you. I'm not really going to have much input other than to tell you if it's wrong. Other directors and writer-directors will go in and they'll micromanage everything. Are you the kind of director who will come in, I think I want a 35 on this, Darius. Can we look at a wider angle? What did your dance with Darius include, like lens choices and things like that? Or was that something because of his body of work you thought, I can feel in good hands here?
We talked about everything. I mean, it was funny because he's like, I've never done a comedy before. And then there'd be scenes where he would say in the middle of the day, he would say, this isn't funny. We should do it. What if you did it this way? And I was like, I agree. So he started giving me comments on things that I think he hadn't gotten to comment on before. I like to over prepare so that I can let everything go. So I can really be in the moment. I'm just neurotic enough that if I didn't over prepare or overthink of every possibility, then I probably wouldn't be as apt on the day to just sort of see what happened. Right. And so there was we would shot list tremendously. And obviously with something like this, where you're cross-cutting so much stuff, you really want to know where you're coming from and where you're going to and the entrances and exits of everybody. But you also want to be able to let that go if it doesn't feel real or vital. And so I think that most of our conversations were about, and so many of my times, if I can't have a technical conversation with someone, I'll just address it as though I was an audience member, which is, this doesn't feel, something about this doesn't feel totally like alive for me.
So you're shot listing, you're showing up on the day, you have your game plan, storyboarding, pre-vising. Tell me how
we did
for that.
Tremendous amount of storyboards. I work very closely with my editor, Harry Jurgen.
In the storyboard process?
From the outset, we start to cut sequences. And then with the board.
I'm sorry, from the outset, meaning when the dailies were starting to come in?
No, and even before we shoot. Okay. Sometimes we'll take and that is something I have learned from TV, which is, when you go to your first test with an audience, the more that we can have done visual effects wise, no matter what anybody says before that test, the audience is you just want them to not think about anything but experience the story, especially a comedy, especially with emotion. And so we do a lot of, we start working on in-house visual effects for things while we're shooting, so that by the time we were 10 weeks into the cut, we had a lot of these sequences very roughly done, but enjoyable enough. And that goes all the way back to prep. And then you really can, I feel like I'm sure it's been said here many times, but I really do feel like you make the movie a few times. You make it in prep, you kind of see it in your head. Then you go and then you make it in production, and then you make it again in post. And each time you make it, you kind of learn something big about what it is you're trying to say, or what is it doing what it needs to do. And because I knew the number of visual effects that would be in this, and then again,
is there a number? Do you remember the number? 8,900?
No, there's about 2,000.
2,000,
between 2,000 and 2,200 visual effects.
It's staggering. I mean, I wanted to say the visual effects were a tremendous part of the film, and you did them really well. I love the visual effects sequence when the rocket is horizontal. And you do that. I've never seen a montage done where you're watching the construction of something. People have done montages where suddenly a building dissolves and it's up. But to have the story, how did you conceive? I mean, I was in the script, I guess. I don't know. But how did you conceive it and work on it? And how did that develop, that sequence?
Well, I was really conscious of scale in this movie because, you go to NASA where we actually got to shoot, I think, more than any narrative film has been allowed to shoot. And we're doing these anamorphic lenses, so we're wide, but you're like, how are we going to get the height? And so they don't actually put the rocket together this way, but we were in one long room and I thought, okay, well, this is a great place to show the length of the rocket. And then we could show the assembly of it. And that's the other thing about this. One of the things that excited me about the movie was the chance to show a lot of elements about the Apollo mission that haven't been in other Apollo stories. For instance, we were on that, the firing room where they launched the rocket. So often in Apollo movies or docs, they're really chronicling what's happening out of Houston once the rocket gets launched. So we reconstructed this whole actually firing room to scale down to every
constructed. I thought that was like an actual.
Oh no, that's that was shot in Atlanta.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and we put the set on rockers, and we had all the video screens showing what was being dramatized, what was being shown that day. So we brought all the extras in, we brought all the background in, and we launched the rocket, and they all got to feel what it felt like to launch that rocket. And so everyone is really experiencing that moment.
I should know this, but I don't. Who's your production designer? They did a hell of a job.
Shane Valentino. Yeah,
great, amazing job.
Yeah, he's terrific. And Mary Zafries, who did costumes, is a legend for a reason. And she was the other person I think taught me the most about period. So Mary dresses every single background person herself. And she'll tell you, as Darius, I think, would tell you the same thing, which is period films are made actually, and not necessarily in the foreground where everybody thinks they're focusing, but in all the details of the background. And they were each so minutely focused on those things. And I realized that's where it starts to, you get the verisimilitude of being.
It's really true. When you're watching a period, you do look at the cars and you're trying to see what else is going on in the background. It's such a good note. But the production design was tremendous. And you must have been a lot of location scouting, I imagine.
There was a lot of locations. We shot. I think the other thing that we're all most proud of about this movie is the majority of it was shot in Atlanta in the winter. And so, so the fact that like it feels like July in Florida is we did about a week in Savannah and we did about 7-8 days at NASA. And I kept putting things, it was at the end of our schedule, and I kept putting scenes on that NASA thing. And everyone's like, well, you can't shoot 6 pages a day. This is a movie. This isn't a TV show. And I was like, well, it's so important. We got to try. And so we did try and we did do it. And we didn't have to do a single pickup or anything for this movie.
I have a feeling I know how you partially did it, but I'm going to get there in a second. I just want to go back to production. So post, same question about how you worked with Darius. So with your editor, you go into I know from reading interviews with you that you like to go in the editing room with a lot. And I think that's great advice. My brother, Tony, before I directed my first film, he goes, be greedy when you're shooting, get everything you can. You don't know what you're going to need when you get in the cutting room. So a lot of directors get in the cutting room with their editor, and now you're just there for 12 hours a day and you're looking at every take, building it. Your relationship with your editor, what was that? Was that relying heavily on
Harry's like a brother to me. I mean, we did Love, Simon together as well. And we've done a number of pilots together. Not that I directed, but that I show ran. And so we, there are days where he'll say, we'll be in shooting. He'll say, you need so-and-so and so-and-so. And he's also a director. In fact, he's directing an episode for us right now. And I would say to him, just, okay, come down and get it. Just come down and shoot it. Because he knows we're going to both be in there together. And
so he would come and do pickups?
Oh, yeah.
Second unit stuff?
Yeah. And Heidi Moneymaker, who was our stunt coordinator, she did a lot of second unit in this film. I mean, there was no way we were going to get it all in the time that we had. And again, I'm pretty detailed about think I need at the time. And if they have a better idea, that's great too. So yeah, I mean, again, it might come from the TV thinking of like the more the merrier, but like I do feel like the Supreme Court of people that you're making the movie with, they're your first audience. They're your collaborators throughout the time. They're the people you get to co-opt all the ideas from, and it's the more collaborative you can make it, the less I'm kicking myself in post.
So tremendous reaction in the early screenings and the previews. So a lot of input comes from those screenings, and then you're going back. So was that an instrumental part of the process of incorporating all that?
Yeah, I'm a fan of testing.
Right.
It makes me sick to my stomach, but I love it in TV and I love it in movies, and I especially.
Well, you're kind of out there naked, so it's an uncomfortable experience when after a full theater and they reduce it to 10, 20 people. Yeah. And one of the 20 people has a note, and suddenly it becomes a real note. And people are going, what about number 19? Right. They thought this. And suddenly, oh, Jesus.
I love the audiences as an audience are the smartest groups on the planet to me. I mean, because when they laugh and they, that feed, and especially if you are working on the tone and the metronomic kind of quality of like, okay, I want a serious moment here and I want to laugh here. Are they ready to laugh? Are they? Only way you can know that is with a group, and it can't be a friends and family because they're just too adulterated. It's too adulterated. It's too it needs to be an unbiased group of people. And so I'm a huge fan of it, and it always helps me, refine things and make. So
you were threading a number of needles here narratively. So that info you were coming, it was helping you to refine. Yep. Define how close to the end. I mean, you were did you like at the end, like, can we have another one just to really test this last thing?
I did 4 tests.
Okay.
This film. And the other thing it did was it showed, it did show all the powers that be the whole time that this movie really plays with an audience. And so that was helpful in terms of all the other things we had to figure out.
Yeah, no, it plays very strong with the audience. Let's talk about how you were making these days, 9 pages a day. And it takes me to the actors now. And the reason I say I think it's a part of it because I have a feeling you rehearsed and were prepared and you had to work with them, but we'll get to that. So Scarlett, so one of the biggest actors on the planet, like with Darius and your editor, tell me about, you meet her, what then becomes the process of working? What is it like to direct Scarlett Johansson, I guess is my question.
Well, I mean, it's really true what people say. I mean, the more talented somebody is, the easier it is. I mean, you really just have to cast people right. That's why I think I probably spend so much time on the casting. I mean, that's because, it is 80% of the job. I mean, and so she's a savant at what she does. Right. She doesn't do I don't think I had a single take in the entire movie that was the same as the last take. I always think that's a sign of a great actor. She's always so in the moment, and she was from the time we did the read-throughs and the time we did about a week of rehearsal with everybody. Which people aren't as used to anymore, but because I come from theater, I always kind of ask for at least, I like to learn as much as I can learn about what's going to actually happen on the day. And because of the quality of this, the patter between everybody and that kind of dialogue, that really helped us in prep.
So the rehearsals, a lot of different kinds of rehearsals. Were they table reads? Was it the classic Mike Nichols blank room and you're taping out like the blocking?
Both. We did a table read and then I brought people into a pretty empty room and moved chairs around myself and just say, hey, come in over here. This is generally the entrance and generally the exit. But you're also learning. There's like 2 rehearsals happening at the same time. You're rehearsing the thing, but you're also rehearsing working together.
Absolutely.
And so on the day, it always makes like there's no firsts of those kind of things, you know. And then if something, you can tell pretty quick if I can, at least I feel like I can tell pretty quick now if someone's holding back or if I don't try and push for those kind of discoveries. Right. It's more just to sort of, I think, to begin to hear the words and begin to see a little bit of how someone might do something and have some fun with it. But I don't like to over rehearse either. So, but there's with something like as complicated as this, there was a lot of opportunity for, to work stuff out beforehand.
I'm always curious about number of takes. It's something that interests me. So some actors, after 1 or 2, that's it. But she.
Oh yeah, I don't do a ton of takes. I'm not Clint Eastwood with 2 takes and we move on, but I'm not 25 takes either. So I mean, it's, I usually, The other thing we like to do is explore having fun in a comedy too. And we had enough, and everybody had their own brand. So Ray Romano's brand of comedy, or Jim Rash's brand of comedy, or Woody's brand of comedy, or Channing's brand of comedy, or Scarlett's, they're all a little different. They're similar enough. And so I think tonally it was about fitting those together too. And letting people explore and try things.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up here. I just wanted to say thank you for making this film. This is a breath of fresh air for somebody who likes original material, non-IP, non-sequel, non-whatever. It's quite an accomplishment, and I congratulate you.
Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely.
Guys, for coming. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. What a joy.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. The Director's Cut is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And please share, subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America